FRA Feathers, King of Bots has a Clash of Clans, and I'll review the latest Animal Warfare, BattleBots episode, all this week in Robot Combat.
2, 1, activate.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Robot Combat. It is probably the hottest day of the year, and I've chosen a bad day to record all this, but couldn't help it. I was away at the weekend, so This Week in Robot Combat is actually covering last week's news. This has happened before. I haven't made any notes for my episode review of BattleBots, so I'm just going to go off the top of my head, and we'll start with Duck vs Quantum, straight in there with the animals this week. And ironically, there's quite a few animals in the news this week, which we'll cover as each one comes up. So Duck vs Quantum, I got this prediction correct that Quantum would win the fight. I didn't get it right that it would win by knockout. Or did it win by knockout? See, this is the thing where I should have made notes. Maybe it didn't win by knockout. I don't know. But Quantum won the fight because they're a crusher, and Duck fits very, very nicely into their jaws. They're made of aluminium, therefore they just go straight through, which was wonderful to watch. Haven't seen Quantum perform like that since, well, ever, because it's not Spectre, and Spectre is in China. So, yeah, I thought it was a pretty good fight for Quantum. Awful for Duck. They did manage to escape a couple of times, sort of, where they sort of pivoted their arms so they high-centered Quantum, who then realised they were high-centered and let go each time. That worked for a little while until Duck caught fire. So, yeah, that was a bad fight for Duck. Good fight for Quantum. Next we had Blacksmith versus Captain Shredderator. I didn't hold out much hope for Captain Shredderator in this one. Blacksmith went in with a wonderful plough and just deflected all the... Well, no, actually they didn't deflect all the blows. Captain Shredderator was very well driven, I thought, in this fight. They managed to drive in and then go round to the side of that plough and just knock Blacksmith off, spiralling sort of away from them. Unfortunately, that tactic then stopped working because Blacksmith cottoned on, and then they got taken over to the screws, and then they got turned upside down eventually, and that was that. Captain Shredderator go 0-4 this year. In fact, 0-5 because they had a loss in the Desperado as well. So not an overly good year for Captain Shredderator. Next is Bombshell versus Lockjaw. This was a weird fight. Lockjaw won it, but sort of only just. Had Bombshell still been moving, they definitely would have won because Lockjaw was very on fire. They'd lost drive on one side, but they'd managed to crab walk for the majority of that fight until they could no longer. But by that point, they'd already killed Bombshell, and that fight was sort of over. Bombshell go 0-4, Lockjaw go 3-1 with their only loss against Tombstone. I think that sounds right. Next was Tombstone versus Gruff, and I had Gruff to win this as the underdogs. They have previously beaten Last Rites, which is the live event version of Tombstone, at, I believe it was Robo something. I can't remember. It's a really hot day and my brain isn't working properly, but I'd expected Gruff, who is a brick, to go and just use their body to destroy Tombstone. Tombstone, coming off of quite the rebuild after their loss against Rotator, they were really smashed up. They're onto their second chassis. They had a new blade put on, or a new bar. They did very well, and because Gruff has those bits on top, the lifter and the flamethrower, and because Tombstone got to them and hit them, it was very obvious damage that affected the way that Gruff worked. Gruff still moving. 3 minutes it lasted against Tombstone, which is no mean feat, but Tombstone got the damage points. Quite clearly, I would have happily given them all the damage points. I know they spiraled off across the arena. In fact, they managed to dig up one of the kill saws, which was just ridiculous, but there we are, and that was very early on in the fight. So Tombstone get all the damage points. Aggression, again, I think that Tombstone was going after Gruff more than Gruff was going after Tombstone, although I've only seen the fight once and my brain's frazzled today, so I'm not sure. But I personally think the judge's decision was correct, that Tombstone should have won that one, and they did. So they go 3-1 with their only loss against Rotator. Gruff, I've no idea what they're on. Gruff is a robot I haven't really been following all that carefully. They have a hope, I think, at the Last Chance Rumble. God almighty, I need to get this over quickly. Next we had Endgame versus Cobalt. Endgame have had an awful season so far, with their only win in the Desperado tournament against Gruff, and they didn't exactly win that one. They outlasted Gruff because Gruff got caught under the floor. Cobalt has had a bit of an iffy series or season. They have had good wins against Sub-Zero and my brain just isn't working today. Who's fought who? They've had a loss against Duck, but that was a really good loss because they fought for the majority of the battle. They took Duck apart and then they got caught on the floor. They put bigger wheels on this time so that they didn't get caught on the floor, which I think has hindered them quite a bit. They were quite bouncy across the arena and they lost their front wedge very early on to Endgame, which usually, if they're bouncing along, stays on the floor and is usually just doing that across the floor. But yeah, they lost that very early, and from then on I thought, yeah, Endgame have this fight. And then Endgame absolutely yeet them into the wall, and one of the Endgame team absolutely cacked their pants. But Endgame win that one because Cobalt doesn't have a Shreemekh, and I didn't think it had a Shreemekh, and that sort of makes it a bit uh-oh. I wonder whether Cobalt will still make it to the top 16 without having to go Last Chance Rumble. I also have an idea if they might go into a play-in match with Quantum and I don't know who else, but if there's another team that have won championships sort of somewhere else across the world, they could have a World Champions melee to see who goes into this World Championship. Because Quantum, obviously, Spectre won in China. Cobalt, obviously, their other machine, whose name escapes me. Anyway, also won in China, and this is fighting robots. I was thinking maybe Tombstone if they lost against Gruff, but they won against Gruff, so they're probably going to be into the top 16 as well. But there we are. Yeah, that was my idea anyway. Next we had Ribot versus Sawblaze, and I do feel that they've sort of fed Ribot to Sawblaze, having won some pretty decent fights against Endgame. That's who else Endgame has fought, Ribot, and they lost. Yeah, so Ribot have had some good wins and taken the competition by surprise, really. Sawblaze, very potent in this fight, very powerful, very good. I love the fact that the Ribot team had dressed Ribot up like Sawblaze, put like a skin on it. Clearly been playing a lot of video games, need to reskin that bot. I do like the Endgame skin they had previously, but this one takes the biscuit and wins the biscuit as well. There was very little Ribot could do, and I didn't think it would be able to. It's got quite a high ground clearance apart from those two little front wedgy things, and Sawblaze is the ultimate dustpan, so Sawblaze sort of had to win this one. I did think it would go to the judges, which I was right in saying, because Sawblaze very rarely gets a knockout unless the opponent is sort of not doing so well, whereas Ribot has been doing very well. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that fight and quite enjoyed the spectacle of seeing Ribot dressed up like Sawblaze fighting Sawblaze. Really good fun, and a battle of the college teams, sort of. Jameson Go obviously is an ex-college team. He was on the Overhaul team previously, and Ribot are from WPI, I believe, so that was cool. Is it just me, or every time they go WPI I'm thinking of some sort of cop show in America? last one, the main event, was Rotator versus Death Roll. I thought Rotator would win this one. I thought their undercutter would get underneath the side of Death Roll, but Death Roll was just superbly driven in this fight. They were excellent. They were all over Rotator. Rotator's bar broke after they were flipped over again, which is a bit weird. So I thought that was an incredible fight. Death Roll did very well, deserved the decision because it did go 3 minutes. Rotator has had a interesting series. They've won 2 fights, they've lost 2 fights, but both the fights they've lost have gone to the judges. Death Roll, who has been an absolute beast this series and is the first machine to go 4-0, which is quite spectacular when you think about the fact that Death Roll was 0-1 and out of the competition back in ABC Season 2. So yeah, I'm really impressed with Death Roll. Obviously their robot Great White in King of Bots was superb, taking out big names like Tanshay and actually I can't remember who else they fought in King of Bots, but there we are. Tanshay's the main one I remember because I wanted Tanshay to do well, and I'll do again this year. Right, let's move on to the not the review, we've just done that. Oh my god, it is too hot. Let's move on to the news itself this lovely bank holiday Monday. Woo, there's a lot of news as well, oh god. Yes, we'll start with the main story for the week, which is a bit of follow-up actually to a video I made on Monday last week, which was about YouTube removing the videos of Robot Combat, thinking that it was animal cruelty or animal abuse or cockfighting or dogfighting or anything of the like. And if you don't know about this news, you must have been living under a rock. But just for you, basically YouTube's algorithm messed up and a load of us content creators kicked up a fuss earlier in the week, and it's made news. It actually got online. Anthony Murney was named in The Independent, and so was this channel actually, which I thought was absolutely amazing and shocking, and all for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. I'd love to be mentioned for something else, but I'm really glad that I was a part of the team who helped to get this sorted. The story was so big that it made the BBC News, which really, I think, put things in motion. YouTube have actually come back and said this is a mistake and they are going to fix it. So everybody who has supported the Save Robot Combat hashtag and supported the videos that people had made, thank you very much. We've actually done something about it. So well done, and just shows you that we can all pull together. Now moving on to popular game Robot Champions, which is taking the Robot Combat world by storm at the minute. It is really fun. I've actually played it myself and I'm really enjoying it. There is so much more they can do with it, which I'm really excited for. So much so that I've gone and supported it on Kickstarter, and you can do so too because their Kickstarter is well underway now. Within the first 24 hours they'd already got a third of the way there. They are now almost half of the way there at the time of recording, which is Monday the 26th of August. As you will see on screen in just a second as it scrolls down, this game will only be made if they hit 100% of their target, and they need all that money to actually make the game. This campaign ends at 11:45 AM British Summer Time, September the 24th, 2019. Please go and support it. This isn't sponsored, by the way. This is just me saying this game's awesome and we need it. If you're still unsure and wish to trial it out, it is available for free as a pre-alpha on Steam, or you can go and play it at both Robots Live in Stevenage late September and at RoboNerd at the end of this week, which is very exciting indeed. And it's RoboNerd and Robots Live I'm going to mention now because this team, Two-Headed Death Flamingo, will be at both. They will be competing in the Heavyweight Championships over at Robots Live in Stevenage in September, as well as the next team, Nelly the Ellybot. Yes, Nelly will be bonking her way to the Heavyweight Championships as well, with a team lineup of James, Dale and Rera from the ESC podcast, and it's ESC we're going to stick with now. Haven't I connected these lovely? The latest episode of the ESC podcast came out on YouTube yesterday, featuring the first special guest, Sam Elliott 64, and special guests at ESC is how we're going to connect this to RoboNerd, because they've announced that Anthony Murney will be one of their guests, as will Mr. Psycho. There's one more special guest to be revealed, so make sure you keep an eye on the Facebook page, and Make sure you go and see ESC live at RoboNerd, which is this Sunday, if I hadn't already mentioned it. Now we must move on to international waters, as King of Bots has continued in China. The new episode came out last night, and it features an awesome fight between Vulcan and Saber. We also got our first look at the remaining teams who haven't been shown off. Jason Marston's Warrior, which looks absolutely awesome, as well as Hounds built by Team Pulsar and Team Rapid, which is the Relentless project they were working on. Hurrah, the news has come full circle at long last. The other remaining teams were Shredderator Tiger Claw with Brian Nave. We also have a version Tantrum competing in King of Bots this year. Then we have the Dragon King team, who is basically Team Red Devil from several seasons ago. And lastly, there was a cheap knockoff version of Huge. Okay. These teams sorted themselves into the celebrities team, so we have Warrior going into the same team as Megabyte and, I almost said Quantum, Spectre. We also have Hounds going into the same team as Snake, Tan Shay, 2Barbecue and Switch. The team that have the Tantrum thing also have Saber. The Vulcan team, I can't remember who their celebrity is. I think he's actually one of the hosts from last year, but they now have Shredderator Tiger Claw, and the other two robots went elsewhere. Now, I'm a bit hazy on this news story, but I think currently going on at the minute is the Featherweight Championship 2019 for the Fighting Robot Association over at Robo Dojo. Just after the edit had wrapped up for last week's episode, these photos came out, and I'm just going to run through who I recognise. So Amnesia is from Team Vulture, they're in Heat A. We also have Impact, which was Rev 2 from Bugglebots. In Heat B, we have Lunatic and Crabsolutely Clawful, who was Claws 2 and also Crabsolutely Clawful in Heat C. We also have Binky, who competed in loads of stuff, and I can't name everything they've done because they've done so much recently. In Heat E, we have Get Shrek'd, which had Ogre Drive in Bugglebot Series 1. In Heat F, we have something that looks like Huge, actually, which is quite cool. And Team Tilly have Red Hot Tilly Pecker, so the very best of luck to all the teams. And lastly, news from the world of Woodrow itself. The channel hit 800 subscribers last night, and you cannot believe just how grateful I am. I am so over the moon that I've even got this far, and I'd love to see how far I can get to, because I do like to challenge myself. So thank you all, I'm glad you enjoy what I'm doing, and I hope to do more of it for you. So yeah, there we are, thank you very, very much. And that just about does it for this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed, well, last week's video, really. That just about does it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. Do subscribe to the channel if you are new. And once again, thank you so much for all 800 people who have subscribed. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for 800 subscribers. I haven't actually done anything for all the others yet. I really want to get to 1,000 subscribers, because then the news I can start monetizing and maybe get a bit more moolah off of it. It's not all about the money, but it'd be nice too. And also I get the community tab, or the proper community bit, where I can put up little messages on YouTube as well, because it's all very well me having the Facebook page, but not everyone sees the Facebook page. So it'd be good if I had the YouTube access as well, so that you guys can see, those of you who aren't on the Facebook as well. So anyway, I'm mumbling and babbling and it's too hot and I'm going to go. So thanks for watching. Next week, well this week actually, this Sunday's one, I'm hoping to get out on Sunday. It will be a special edition. There won't be any actual news stories. There won't be a review of BattleBots. It will just be a sort of a video all about RoboNerd and what happened at RoboNerd. And I'm very much looking forward to RoboNerd. It's this Saturday. Good grief. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I shall see you at some point. Bye bye.